Happy Monday, YouTube. Happy Monday, everyone. And it is my pleasure, as always, to welcome my guest, Midnight Goddess.
Hello.
And Koki Pirate.
I'm glad that you're getting pleasure from this.
I won't tell you what kind.
I charge $300 an hour, Alex. And my whip's in the corner. Now go get it, boy.
Not now. Right. So, this topic is to do with... Okay, well, look, it's linked in the description. It's bulletproof blankets for children to take to school with them, which presumably they have in a bag, and in the event of shooting, take this, duck, cover, you're underneath the blanket. What gets me here is America has had these shootings. People can argue over the exact statistics, but and what does or doesn't constitute a school shooting, but it's a problem, and it's a very peculiar problem to the US, it seems. And one of the most important things about a society is that it does look after its own. It does look after people. Most importantly, it looks after our children. And so the real question is this the best way for Americans to protect their children? Midnight Goddess.
I'd have to say no, it's not. It breeds paranoia. I mean, the bag is even designed to fold up with straps to wear like a backpack. Or you can wear the straps to move around so that you can get from one spot to another with this bulletproof shield. And I also wonder if this is going to encourage, people who are already predisposed to do something like this. Because it says, in the article, it says it is successful against 90% of the weapons used in the recorded shooting.
Right, yeah.
Some crazy person is going to want to figure out what that 10% is. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. Like, for example, the person who killed John Lennon. He wanted to be famous for killing John Lennon. Yeah. It doesn't take much for someone who's already got that in their head to take it up a notch. It's almost like daring them. Like, I dare you to try and make it worse, to get past these things. And we're also breeding a society of fear. We're teaching our children to be afraid of something that should be a sanctuary. A school is supposed to be a safe place where you can learn and thrive. And now they're having to carry bulletproof blankets with them. What's next?
Yeah.
Bulletproof umbrellas and bulletproof this and that, so that if you're having a coffee and there happens to be some psycho in a BMW who's mad because he's a virgin and someone won't put it out, and he shoots, you can put your umbrella out. This is ridiculous. We're creating a society of fear and terror, and I don't want to be afraid all the time. I don't want my son to be afraid all the time. I think it's ridiculous that we are trying to teach them so young to be so afraid of everything around them instead of teaching them how to change things. Don't buy them a bulletproof vest. Teach them how to change things so we don't need the bulletproof blanket. I mean, we're obviously missing a step here. It's like, instead of going, here, use this to save yourself and let's hope that some crazy doesn't do anything, why don't we be proactive and fix the problem in the society, which is the mental health thing, which I won't get into, because we both know I can talk about that for days. But instead of looking to fix the problem, we're teaching our children to live in fear.
And a few things there that, as I understand it, there are certain types of bullets that will be able to get through these blankets, assuming you've got time in that situation.
A bow and arrow, too.
Sorry?
Pretty much anything longer, massive enough, so a bow and arrow would go through fine.
Ah, right. The point about... sorry, there was one thing I was going to say to address something else that Midnight Goddess said, but I can't remember it. But I'll go with my main thought, which is that it's resignation. It's not just... Oh, yeah, somebody did compare it, the paranoia with, like, selling bomb shelters during the Cuban Missile Crisis. It seems to me, though, that it's resignation, just accepting school shootings as a way of life, which isn't true in schools in most of the world. And well, certainly not first world. And it's almost like America will do anything but impose stricter gun laws. You know, they will do this.
Well, it's not even about the gun laws, because criminals will always get guns.
Well, guns make it quite easy to kill somebody, though. I mean, comparatively, if I try to strangle you, that's quite difficult. But a gun doesn't.
No, I know what you mean, but the stricter gun laws won't stop the criminals or psychos from getting guns.
Well, this is a whole other conversation.
I will throw out there that I think the UK is an example of a country where it's been shown to work. But I'm not saying it's the only factor in all of this. But another one more point is each one of these costs $1,000. Sorry, that's £1,000. Sorry, $1,000. I don't know if $1,000 is $1,000, but $1,000.
1,000 American dollars.
1,000 American dollars. Well, still a lot. It's and how many children? Because I'm guessing, I mean, these school shootings will sometimes not happen in the richest of neighbourhoods. If you've got 3 kids, are you going to really fork out $3,000 because that's the way of keeping your... And it puts the responsibility on victims not to be shot. That's another thing. But anyway...
well, I don't think about the financial thing. I don't know about you, but 3,000 American dollars is 4 months of rent and 2 months of groceries for my family. You know, like I don't see that ever being in my budget. You know, if I had 3 kids and had to spend 3,000, even 1,000, that's 2 months of rent and groceries.
There you go.
You know,
I think it's pretty obvious that this isn't something armed to protect or designed to protect all children. It's something directed at upper middle class or upper class families that are, you know, concerned because they get to be protected. The wealthy get the gated communities. You know, when you think about neighborhood watches or people open carrying, you know, this is all in pretty affluent neighborhoods. You know, it's the safest people that always seem to have the greatest paranoia.
And of course, Elliot Rodgers was well-to-do as well, in a well-to-do neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I do think, not that I'm necessarily opposing the point that Midnight Goddess was making. It's just more of like, to bring this up, the idea that we need to address the mental health institution. The two aren't mutually exclusive. We can prepare students for the worst, while at the same time trying to deal with the mental health problem. I mean, we do have schools do drills for fires. You know, it's a fire drill. Everyone out of the classroom practice the evacuation. And it certainly wouldn't hurt to have a protocol in schools to deal with these kinds of shootings. Granted, some are better than others. I remember seeing some old sort of films during the Cold War that they're saying, duck under your desk when there's a nuclear bomb warning, because that's really going to help, apparently. Granted, I guess it's still better than standing where the ceiling could collapse on you, but still.
Yeah. Everyone at home, if the world is going to end, you have to put a paper bag over your head. That's enough.
But, you know, this whole, let's buy a $1,000 blanket and pretend we're a turtle until the shooter goes away.
I'll take my towel, thanks.
It seems a little excessive for the cost. You know, I certainly think that it wouldn't hurt to have some sort of preparation in schools to help kids evacuate in the case of that kind of emergency. You know, not just a fire emergency, but yeah, it's a lot of money, and it's clearly something about, you know, the rich who really don't need to be paranoid about the danger that's approaching them. You know, in low-crime families up in the suburbs or whatever are the ones that are constantly panicking when, you know, in poorer neighborhoods where they are faced with violence pretty regularly, apparently there's just no concern over their not being able to afford the blanket.
It's just another example of white male privilege.
Imagine saying then, okay, we've got this is the best way to protect American children. Well, what about the people living below the poverty line then? Obviously, the taxpayer will have to pay for their bulletproof blankets.
Well, a lot of people are just going to say, screw them, they don't need it.
Exactly. So yes, this essential thing for protecting children, and yeah. Can I also point out, when I was a teenager, there was a school shooting nowhere near me. It was actually, I think it was a place called Dunblane in Scotland. And we actually guns already weren't common in the UK. But this one. Oh my God.
Sorry.
That's okay.
To try to keep your transformations at a minimum during this call. It's so that you can become a motorcycle.
I was itchy. My ears were itchy.
They brought in stricter gun controls, and since then it's been like a decade and a half. I don't think there's been a single case of a school shooting in the UK in that time.
I think that's really getting Americans. Because as a Canadian, I'm all for responsible gun laws, but I think America may have a revolution if they try and pull that shit. We could see another French Revolution on our hands.
We also need to realize that the UK is a relatively small, densely populated nation. And there are some parts of the United States that do have fairly strict gun laws and lower gun crime than other regions. The idea that we'd have a single solution for a nation as large and as populous and as sparsely populated. Well, yes, it's but the population's much more spread over a much larger area. We obviously need to approach the problem from a very different angle as well.
Mm. Yeah, I suppose so. And there are some other kind of cultural differences, like Britain doesn't have a hunting culture, for example, because we killed everything anyway. It's an island. And obviously we don't have which amendment is it that American pro-gun people talk about?
The Second Amendment, yes.
Right, yeah.
That has an interesting history, but yeah.
Aha, okay. Well, I'm going to throw open the floor if anyone wants to add anything at this point.
I just think that it's an example of finding a market where you're playing on people's fears. And that kind of disgusts me. They're using the children as fear pawns to get the parents to spend the money. And I find that to be absolutely deplorable, and I think it's scaring children for no reason.
And let's not forget they bring up tornadoes and hurricanes. And was that like footage from Ground Zero that they were showing at the beginning as well? I don't know. It was some sort of disaster going on.
I think it looked like the beginning of from 9/11.
Yeah, it's basically saying the apocalypse is coming. It's not just that there's been an increase in school shootings, but rather the entire world is going down the shitter. Be the last to survive. It's just sort of, it's really preying on people's fears, and those who have the money will invest in it, obviously. No, I mean, not everyone who has the money, but a lot of people who have the money and are paranoid like that will invest in it.
I'm imagining being one of these poor children, having it really drummed into me that you do not lose your bulletproof blanket. Anything else, but you do not lose that. And it probably won't make these kids' lives any easier generally. Okay then. So, Midnight Goddess, your final thoughts and goodbye.
We need to teach our children and the future generations how to positively solve problems instead of teaching them fear and teaching them to hide and run away from things. Obviously, you don't confront somebody shooting a school, but it's just one building block in raising a generation that is scared of its own shadow. Alex, don't forget your safe word later. So this is goodbye from Midnight Goddess.
And Koki Pirate, your final thought and goodbye.
I just want to say that the world is not ending. You know, yes, there's been an increase in shootings, except when you really look at things from the historical perspective. Living in the United States today, or I guess any affluent country, you know, the European Union or Australia, especially like Japan or the UK, which are, you know, especially, they're nations that are pretty good at stopping people from being killed. You are among the safest people in the entirety of history. You know, to think about, like, all of this stuff that's going to happen in the world ending, to make your kids pretend to be turtles, it's ridiculous. Now, granted, if you want to give them any blanket and say pretend to be a turtle, then that's probably a fun time for the kids. But don't spend $1,000 because you think that shooters are coming for you and that hurricanes will blow your house down and that the world is going to end. And may the hamster of peace of mind be upon everyone. Good day.
Yes, and they can get to decide whether they're Leonardo or Raphael. Was that another one?
Yeah, Michelangelo.
They were all Renaissance painters, weren't they?
Yeah.
In any case, for my final thoughts, I'm going to plagiarise an episode of Quantum Leap and say, sell fun, not fear. And it's a good night from me.